explains the idea of what the idea of Baal Tshuva. A Baal Tshuva is a person who comes from a place where there's a lot of darkness. You know, there's not a lot of light. There's not a lot of clarity of what life is. But for whatever reason, whether they go to a Shabbos or whether they go to an event for Kiruv or whatever it is, they go somewhere and they get a spark lit within them. And so when Eliezer came to visit the land of, it wasn't Canaan, what was the land that he went to? Oh, he went to Abraham's homeland, and he brought all types of gifts, he brought all types of positivities, and Rivka connected to that ruchnius, that light of Abraham through Eliezer, through the gifts and all these things, and that inspired her to leave everything behind and go. But he says it's a different situation with Yitzhak. Yitzhak grew up around greatness. You know, he grew up around Torah giants. He grew up around angels and all types of amazing, mind-boggling things that defied reality. And they say that a person who grows up in that reality, it's very difficult for them to find their way. It's very difficult for that person who grows around Torah giants to find their uniqueness, because there's so much Kedusha. As with Rivka, there was very little Kedusha. So you see someone who's on a righteous path, and you have an inner holiness within yourself, you're gonna want to leave. And I think a lot of us can relate to that idea. But so the question is, so why does that make Rivka, why does that make Yitzhak's prayers answers and not Rivka's? And so the Rabbi Samson Raphael Hirsch and many other people, they talk about the idea of finding who you are, you know, and finding your uniqueness. Because even the person who leaves the darkness and finds the light and finds the Kedusha, that doesn't necessarily mean that they defined who they are. And when you look at every generation of the patriarchs, had their own base midrash. They had some type of learning environment. They had some type of learning environment where the people of those generations were able to come and learn. So Abraham's base midrash, it's like Mom shows everybody. He would go out, he was like tens of thousands of people. He traveled everywhere. He was in Haran, he went to Egypt, he went to Sodom, different places, and tens of thousands of people came. But Yitzhak, his son, he didn't have a huge base midrash. He had one student. And his one student was Yaakov. And he taught Yaakov, he built Yaakov's Kedusha, he built his ruchnius, he built his understanding of what the future was. And the Chazal, they tell us that Yitzhak represented Gevurah. And Gevurah is different than Hesed, because Gevurah creates a limitation on Hesed. And so the Hesed that Abraham created in the world, Yitzhak's job was to create a limitation on that Hesed. And he created a separation between negative and positive. His entire house created that differentiation between negative and positive. Even his wife understood the mission. And so he had one student, and that one student was the beginning of creating the Jewish people, where there was no contamination. There was no Ishmael, there was no Esav. It was just pure Kedusha and leading humanity to the path of the final Gula. And so there was in closing, there was a rabbi, actually the street that I live on, Rabbi Ashlag, Rabbi Yehuda Ashlag, he's a Kabbalist. He wrote a lot of stuff. He's in the 20th century here in Israel, and he says, you know, his outlook on the Olam Haba, the world to come. He says we're not necessarily fully judged on what we did that was good and what we did that was bad. We're judged on who we could have became and what we didn't do. And so when we think about our lives, you know, it's easy, you know, especially being religious, you know, it's such a conformity. You know, I live in Meir Sharim. It's like there's a certain dress, there's a certain outlook, and it's easy to fall into that and say, you know, I'm doing my job. You know, I'm a part of it. But he says, like, when you go to Olam Haba, there's your positive deeds and there's your negative deeds, and Hashem shows you that, but then he moves the curtain aside and he shows you a movie screen. And that movie screen is the life of who you should have been, the safers that you should have written, the tours that you should have done around the world, the people that you should have done kiruv on. And if you subjugate that part of yourself for the conformity, then from that space, you're going to be judged. And so I think the lesson that we can learn from Yitzhak is that our future and who we are in this world is solely determined on us finding what our purpose is. And not saying we got to go far away, because Yitzhak finding who he is, continued the link from Abraham, and Abraham was a continuation from Adam Rishon. And so this going forward it's great to learn. It's great to understand the Torah, but I think even more important, we need to find out who we are and what we're supposed to contribute to this world.